Okay, so last video I spent maybe too much time, but I think it's really important to talk about, like, first, like, why does it make sense to do this? Because if you like, why does it make sense for variables to be defined within different methods? Like, doesn't that too complicated? Why do we define them? Why do we want to define things within the main method and not within the class? And hopefully that kind of gives some idea and gets you some good habits and explains why, like, putting things up here wouldn't make sense, but also why you might get errors if you define variables only within one method or the other. So now we're going to go through, so what we talked about last time was about these two, and in my mind is the way I think about it, like two separate universes, the main universe and the add3 universe. And things that exist within the main universe don't exist within the add3 universe. Yeah, so what we could do here, but we can connect the two universes in a way. So like when I send in, and let me change this color up here, when I send in the number, and let me go back to my, one second. When I go back into this, and let's kind of delete, we don't need all this count stuff anymore. Let's just go back to our add3 method. So when we do this, when we send add3 and we send in the value number, that's like sending number from one universe, the main universe, down to the add3 universe. So this number value here is going to get sent down to the add3 universe down here. And in the add3, when we define the add3 universe, it's going to have, well, we know like it needs to have some numbers. We don't know what like the name of the variable is going to be, so we'll just call it n for now for whatever we might put in there. And we're going to define this to be like, let's do plus or minus. And we're just going to say that n is going to be plus equal to 3. Like, we don't know what variable is going to get passed in here. It could be, the variable name could be anything. Like, we can't predict what the name of the variable that the main method's going to send in. It might be number, it could be, I don't know, it could be count, it could be size, it could be, I mean, who knows what the name is going to be, right? Length, I don't know, these are just the things that are coming to my head. Like, any one of these could be passed into our add3 method. So we don't know what the name is, so we're just going to give it like a generic placeholder name to begin with, int n. Okay, so, because it doesn't really matter what the name that gets passed in. But, so like for example here, we're going to send in number. Number is going to go into the add3 method, and anywhere where we see n, we're going to replace it with this, whatever value we got from the number. So we're passing in number 1 into the method, and so then we're going to get, so as a result of this, n, I think if we look at it like coding wise, in the very first step, we define n to be equal to 1, because that's what got passed in. In the second step, we say n plus equals, I keep doing that. And then finally, so as a result, n is going to be equal to 4. But the problem is, like, again, our universes are separated. Like, we have this universe down here, and we have the universe up here. We also need to send the value back to here. So I'm going to switch over to Jelliet real quick. So Jelliet is we've talked about it a little bit. It is I think we used it like once in class before, but it's a way to like visualize our code. So I've already run the code. I've created the code. Should be the exact copy, right? We're passing in the number, and then we're going to print out the number, and let's run this so far. So Jelliet's going to help us visualize our information. So like you can see, like it's going through like step by step. Int number 1. We're taking from the constants and we're adding it to the int. Okay, so the value of int is going to be 1. And then we're running down the next step. We're going into, in my class, we have a method called add3. So my class.add3, and we're going to pass in whatever the number is. And if we look back a little bit, oh, too far back. And we can see like this int num1 gets passed into the class add3. So now it's going to access, so now you can see this starting to pop up, where the add3 method is now being looked at. And if we go back a step, 1 second. Okay, so if we go back to here, we're passing in the int num1 into our add3 method, and then we're going to see this part get highlighted next. Right, and now this part comes up, and we're going to pass in the int num1 into that method. So now it's like accessible in here. Notice it's just a value, and it's just a value 1, but we're defining int n to be that. Now it's just running through the individual code of like adding n1 plus 3. Again, from constants. All these tiny little operations it has to do. Okay, so n is now going to become 4. In our case code. So the problem with this is, like, this still isn't going to work. I mean, if we print this, it's going to, I don't know why it throws it away when we print, but like, it's not going to, it's just going to print the value 1. Like, if we switch over to our Replit, when we run this, we just get n is equal to 1, even though we changed this. And that's because, I'm going through like my 3 different things here, that's because we haven't actually sent the value back. We took a value in, we took a value from one universe and put it in the other universe, we made some modifications to it, but we never sent it back. So that's why we need to be able to return something. So when we set up a method, there are, well, there's, I think we talked about this in a video in chapter 12, but like there's 2 keywords we're not going to worry about quite yet. And then there's 3 other things, or there's 2 other things in here. The first one is the return type. So whatever we put in here is the return type. So, and there's always going to be something there. It's either going to be, so if we're returning something, in this case we want it to be an integer, because we want to return an integer back to the main program. So it's going to be an integer there. And we still change the at same name. All that stuff's not going to change. So return type add 3. So when we go to our Replit, we need to change this to int. And now as soon as we do that, we're going to it needs to return something. Like now we're getting a different error because we're saying, hey, we're going to return something, computer, but the computer is now wondering, like, okay, you said you're going to return something, you're not, so let's make the computer happy, and we'll do return n. And so this will, it's kind of like a loop. The number goes into here, like number 1 goes into here, goes in here, we replace it, and now our last step here is that we are going to return n, and we're going to send that back to the original method, and it's going to get used right here. So this whole thing is going to be basically have a value of 4 because we sent in 1, we added 3 to it, we returned it, so this whole thing turns into 4. One last thing we need to do here. Okay, so we're returning n, everything seems like still 1. Why is it still 1? Well, because we sent the number back, but did we do anything to it? We sent n back, but we didn't really change the value at all. We just left it as, we sent it back, but we didn't save it. So we just need to update our value number to be equal to add 3. Now when we run, this is going to work. Yeah, so now we get 4. So kind of going through that process of separate universes, we send a variable from one universe to the other, and then we need to be able to send it back. Okay. So I'm going to wrap the video up now. I was going to go back to Jellyit. Maybe I'll do that after I say this, just for anybody that wants to keep watching. But this is really important. This return type thing is really important because now we can look back at the main method and we can understand at least one more thing in there. This void, if we were going to, this void means that the main method doesn't return anything, and that's just part of the structure of the main method. It's a special method that's not going to return anything. But we could use that if we wanted to, instead of sending the variable back and we just wanted to maybe print it, we could make a void method in here. And now running this, now we wouldn't be returning anything. So now when we do this, when we run the method add 3, we're going to print out the value of n, which is going to be that 4. But the original, we didn't change anything with this variable, we just sent it into the method. So this number still remains 1, which is why we get this. But we get 4 out of this because we're running this method here. But this method it's just printing. It's not returning anything, right? So we can put void in there. So that'll start to make a little bit more sense. So we could talk about this too. I think that's enough for now. Actually, you know what? You can stop the video. I mean, obviously you can stop at any time. I'm not requiring you to be here. But the Jellyit, yeah. So I updated our code here in Jellyit, and I just wanted to give you a quick visualization. We won't go through the whole thing, but well, we will go through the whole thing, but I won't go super slow mode. So int num, right? We're passing the variable. We're sending this number inside the method. Inside of the method, we're doing this stuff, right? Int num is equal to 1 to begin with, and then we're adding 3 to it. We get 4. and then it's going to reset n to be 4. And now 4 gets passed out, and it's kind of passing between galaxies, between universes, and it's resetting the value of num4 here, and then getting spit out. So, yeah. So, I mean, just trying to visualize, like, what does this look like within the code? How does things get passed back and forth? I think that's the value of this. So, a little bonus.